to order. December 23rd, 2025.
Move we approve the minutes as written.
Okay. All in favor? You got it?
Yep.
Excellent. Yeah.
I was thinking about this growth ordinance.
Thank you.
And Ken reported that it was from 13 individuals for the growth.
Yeah.
But how do we get our permits? Do we get them from individuals who bought a lot in the subdivision, or is it?
Right. Yeah, I felt that there was a deeper answer to that. So it probably has a whole more.
Yeah.
But if you look at the way our ordinance is written, it limits the number of permits from a subdivision per year. Might be a hole in that thing. Just take a look.
Review and approve January 6, 2026 warrants.
And then we accepted it, presented.
Second.
All in favor? Grant writing funding webinar. Webinar for Thursday, February 19th, 2026, 25. Which is how to write grants.
For money.
Yeah. Robert, I'd be interested in doing that once like I told you earlier, I'll do it here, my internet.
Would they get us multiple times if we do them from one location? Or how does that work?
No, I don't know.
They,
You could have two.
I could set on camera and they wouldn't even know I was there. Right?
Oh, yeah, you could.
Okay, Jack, sit right there and,
Yeah.
Yeah.
in fact, I don't think you have to show your face to take the webinar.
They probably don't.
Well, some of them that I've sat on, you just, you see the presenter, but you don't see everybody else who's there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, if you're gonna do it, I'll try to be there as well.
Can I ask a question? Is this something that's only for the selectmen? Is it something that anybody can do, or what's the story on that?
If we want somebody to write grants for us, yeah, anybody can do it, yeah.
But I mean, can somebody just sit in on it if they wanted to? I mean, I heard you say that they don't really know.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's a fee,
There's a fee.
$65 for MMA members and $130 for a non-member, which would put you as a non-member. But
Thank you.
who's to say if you're there, not that I want to teach the system,
Well,
but.
when I taught school, I wrote a lot of grants.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, but I never took a webinar, it doesn't mean you know, I
Okay.
just did it,
You
know.
interested?
I think, yeah, if you wanted to join in.
But I wouldn't have to pay anything?
No, that member is the town is the member. The whole
Okay.
town.
We can designate her as a
Yeah, she
listening
was-
So
member.
don't designate me as anything. I just would like,
Just draft it.
I'm just interested, I am
Yeah.
kind of interested in it.
Okay.
So, and I forgot now what day you said it was.
February 19th from 1 to 5. And this one is specifically geared toward understanding how municipal grants work in Maine.
Yeah.
Learn where to find appropriate grant opportunities, draft core proposal components, understand compliance before applying, avoid common mistakes, and lead with practical tools. It says those are the learning objectives of the webinar.
Okay, it's sponsored.
MMA.
MMA.
Yes.
What's that stand for? Oh,
The reason we should have somebody who knows this is, I believe, in the not too distant future, we're gonna need to ask for money. Because we're looking at for firehouse and maybe more. And somebody to know how to do it well.
Would it be possible to get in touch with Tammy at the food pantry, because it seems to be the sort of thing she should know how to do?
Oh, about writing grants for the pantry.
Talk about, Bob just talking about buildings. They're going to have a building problem in the next 2 years, probably.
Yeah, I don't know how it stretches out to that. Yeah,
Just a thought,
Yeah.
ignore it, it's okay with me.
Sit in the room as well as anybody else, I guess.
yeah, if she's interested. You get in contact with her that initial time or since then.
Very tangential.
Yeah.
I overwhelmed her, so. Going easy.
It focuses a little bit more, it looks like, on municipal grants, but there may be definitely, like transferable information that would be helpful. That would be a good start for her, perhaps. Yeah. Because it does say, municipal staff and officials at various experience levels, including those who are new to grant funding and need an introduction to the grant process, terminology and requirements, so it's a good jumping off point.
Good. We got some takers.
Yeah. Wait a minute, that's Terry Egan. Mountain Division Trail.
Okay. Trying to figure out how to do this. It's basically, my name is Doug Smith, and I'm the president of the Selectmen Mountain Division Trail, the advocacy organization for the trail and all the activities that surround it and using it. And this is Terry Egan, partner in this endeavor. One of the board members is very active and is the vice president of the organization. And we wanted to come to visit you today because we'd like to think we're a representative board. We have people on the board from each of the towns through which the Mountain Division Trail passes. It's not exactly true because we don't have any trails built in Portland or Westbrook, but we do in Wyndham, Gorham, Standish, and Freiburg. And before too long, we need to have all the other towns between Brownfield and Hiram and Baldwin represented. We have some of them, but we need a representative from Baldwin as well, so we're looking for board members. That's the first pitch of the evening. The other thing is that we haven't been as successful in visiting you, in part because we don't have board members informing the selectmen and councilmen about what's going on. So Terry and I have stood in, and some of you may remember we were here, I think it was February of 23 was the last time here. So 23 months ago, we've been a little remiss. Now it's time to catch up. But I'm really reluctant to talk at you as much as talk with you, so I wanted to fill in a little bit of the history that's taken place, the activity since that date in 23. Because we've been pretty busy. And then quickly move to questions you might have. We can essentially answer what's ahead of us in terms of trajectory, timelines, and all that kind of thing. Does that sound okay? Good. So, in '23, when I think back on February of that year, we were mounting up to try and get a piece of legislation called LD 404, which the number aside, what it is a piece of legislation that was sponsored by Rick Bennett for the purpose of getting authorization to remove the rail and build a trail on tilt rail. And what that means is really important is that because of the various legislation at the federal and state level that's been passed, when a railroad ties and the rail itself are removed, you have to make provisions for the return of the rail when it's economically feasible to be returned. It's not just we want a railroad and it's not a viable business, it's got to be a credible business venture. And the rail out here that goes by the river and through Baldwin Road to the other towns hasn't had a freight train on it since 1986, or a passenger train since 1957. So one could arguably say this is an asset that hasn't really been used that much for its intended purpose. LD 404, to come full circle, was that legislation that said, okay, we have this kind of lazy asset that the state owns, what are we going to do with it? And this legislation, when it's signed into law, will enable us to remove the rails and ties and build a trail in its place. For 31 miles of it. And that would take the section in Freiburg approximately 5 miles of it. It ends at the border of Brownfield and Freiburg on 113 and goes all the way to Standish. In fact, we connect with a section of 5 miles of trail until rail in Standish, Gorham, and Wyndham, all the way ending at 202 near my house. So this 31 miles of trail is a big chunk to bite off, and it was broken into 6 different phases, approximately 5 miles in each phase. And that was a way to make it a little bit more digestible for the MDOT and others financially as well. So what was launched in spring of '24, the fall of '23, was a feasibility study done by HNBT to look at different sections, look at bridges, look at culverts, and look at the costs associated with putting a trail into a rail there. Because many of these bridges, if you looked at them closely and you've been along the rail, some of them were constructed in 1878. That's a heck of a long time for these bridges to be in place. So they completed that feasibility study and came up with an estimate of about $10–11 million to build that section, that first section, which was encompassing the first 10 miles of the trail from the border with Freiburg and Brownfield all the way into, I think it's called Mountainside Drive, the parking lot for top of the mountain in Highland. And the intention is to build that in the next year and a half to 2 years. There was a design study that was commissioned in May of this last year. And the purpose of this is to actually come down to the point where you have blueprints coming out the other side. You can hand to a contractor and say, this is what we want to do, how much it's going to cost, and engage in an RFP process to identify a contractor and get on with it. The intention is to complete the final design in May of this year, and then get a contract in place, RFP process, and contractors identify the contract in place by September. Potentially breaking ground even in the fall of this year, more likely in the spring of next. The construction of that trail, that 10 miles of trail, it goes pretty quickly when you're working on a rail bed instead of trying to put it beside it. A number of people open up the box of puzzles here. Many people have said, well, why don't you have a rail with a trail? And the answer to that is simply, it's much more expensive, approximately 5 times more expensive. And coming home to the roots here, in sections of Baldwin and Hiram, the trail couldn't be next to the rail because there's not enough of an easement there, not enough of a setback actually. It could be a rock wall. It could be going across a pond, and the drop-off is 10–15 feet. There's not more than 4 or 5 feet on either side. You can't get far enough from the rail. The consultants who did the study estimated that over 15% of the total 31 miles, you couldn't put a trail next to the rail. So that kind of puts the idea of a rail with a trail not feasible in this particular section of 31 miles. So we're going barreling ahead with the trail until rail concept. That brings us up to about where we are now. I would turn it over to Terry. There's some things that I've missed or things you'd like to highlight?
No, I think you did a nice summary. Our group is actually called the Friends of the Mountain Division Trail, and we work as, advocates for the trail, doing things like this, or just, going to, different events around this whole area to really keep people informed about what's going on. And as Doug said, we've been pretty busy, so we actually started a website to be able to house a lot of the information, like these various studies and so forth, and design ideas. We actually made brochures up as well, where it gives you an idea of different portions of the trail that exist now. But I think this is pretty valuable to share with folks because what we've done is show where the trail currently exists, and we've identified a number of businesses that adjoin the trail. So places where people could stop, get something to eat or get, stay over or whatever. With the whole intention being that having a trail is great for recreation, but it's also going to be great for the economy of the town. If you have, people biking through town, they're going to want to stop and have lunch or, maybe they need a tire repaired or some such thing, but having it easily visible for folks to know where these various businesses are, we think is going to be a real benefit to the towns along the way. We also noticed that you folks completed your, and I'll pass these out if you'd like as well, you completed your comprehensive plan last year, I believe, and part of that plan is in the recreation chapter is about continuing the Mountain Division Trail. We were happy to see that. I'm from Brownfield, and we completed our comprehensive plan in, I think it was 23, and we also put it in our plan that we wanted to extend the Mountain Division Trail from Freiburg down through Brownfield, because you can see what a benefit it is to have a safe place to ride bikes or walk someone in a wheelchair or walk children in strollers, and it's just a way for people to really enjoy the outdoors in a safe way. So we're pretty happy that progress is being made. It's been a lot of hard work on the part of a lot of people, but we're hoping that Baldwin's going to join with us and be behind us with the rest of the towns along the way. We appreciate the chance to speak.
Another bit of the history, the Mountain Division Alliance, which was the predecessor organization, we changed the name and structure, et cetera, was actually formed in 1993. We've been at this for quite a while. And the prospect of LD 404, I skipped over it as if, we dreamed it up in January and got passed in June. It had actually been in the making for over 20 years. And when it came time to go in front of the Transportation Committee, we had a lot of support. We had over 220 people providing support, of which 5 or 6 were saying we want a trail with a rail, but the others were all in favor of, once they saw some publication about it, some information about it, the trail until rail. It was passed out of the Transportation Committee into the Senate and the House, and Rick Bennett, the sponsor, was able to guide it through directly and indirectly both houses, and it passed by a supermajority in the same day.
And I believe what Rick said was it's a bill that had more support than any other bill that he's proposed. So that was pretty neat to hear that.
And it was signed into law by the governor on July 3rd, I believe it was. And Terry and I were there for that same August. It was a big day for us. The economic benefits and the benefits overall are not just people coming from away, but it's some people in the town. We in Wyndham and Gorham and Spanish Neck section started putting trail counters out there 3 years ago. put them out on weekends in July, which is the peak time of the year, and we're absolutely for it. We've seen the daily use jump up dramatically as we've been promoting newsletters, putting things out in various publications, stories. It's on a peak day, and that's those July weekends, over 400 people were on that trail. And of those, more than half of them were pedestrians. And I'm on it in the summer. I feel guilty saying this, but where I live is on the Penobscot River, and my neighborhood has like 12 houses. There's a snowmobile path that goes from my neighborhood to the trail. When I first moved in there, I walked through that trail, so where is it? It was like Alice in Wonderland. Where am I going to end up here? I got to the end, and there was the Mountain Division Trail, and I went, this wasn't on the listing. I assure you it would be now, because it's known. That trail was paved in 2006, originally gravel in 2003, the Freiburg section 2012. And since that 2005-2006 period, the amount of utilization has increased. Here's the punchline. Last 3 years, 71% increase in people using it. And it's heartwarming to me. I'm out there in the summer probably 3 times a week riding it. And there's kids learning how to ride. There's dogs on leashes, off leashes. There's people with baby carriages. It's a real mixed population, and a lot of cyclists. Now in Freiburg, I think it flips around 2/3 cyclists, 1/3 pedestrians. So they get over 100 people a day as well.
Someone told me they saw a pony park there one day.
And then there's the sled dog races.
Yeah, that's right.
But I would have to say the majority of the people are local who come and use the trail. Once they use it, they come back. And that's, I think, a wonderful thing for the towns through which the trail passes. It's convenient. It gets harder and harder to say I don't want to ride the bike or walk if that trail is there, and you can see some scenery along the way. So that's the second spiel for tonight.
Does anyone have any comments
Yeah,
or any
questions,
questions, any thoughts you want to share?
So what I've seen is that I've ridden on bike and partial in Standish, but I haven't ridden on the one in Freiburg, except I've seen the end of it as I go by on 113, and it looks like it's chain link fenced on both sides, and paved all the way. Is that what's going to be built? Chain link fence on both sides and paved?
No. Actually, once you get beyond that parking lot area, it's a split rail fence. It's not chain link. In the section that I live by, there is more chain link, and the reason is there's a big drop off. It's a safety thing, and it's on one side, not the other, and there are gaps for wildlife to get through. Which it was thoughtfully done, and many people would prefer it wasn't chain link, but in the sections where it is, it's a safety matter more than anything else. It's not. That's what it's about. I would prefer it wasn't chain link because we have to sometimes maintain it. The vines that grow up. They've got a lot of use out of those trails.
So I own about a mile of property that butts the trail. How do I go about ensuring my long-term access to the property because it landlocks me? Right now, we drive across the railroad tracks. There's a place where we used to have a road. Traditionally, the family would drive from the farmhouse, which was an inn. They'd drive down through the woods, across the railroad tracks, and over to Cornish Station. And over the years, they've used it for logging and stuff. But when you put the trail in, I think you're going to landlock us down on the other side of the river.
That's not the intention. The intention, it isn't turning out that way. I don't believe either. Every single one of the abutters is contacted as part of this planning process, and there's different needs. Some people want a fence there because they don't want the people going onto their property, but they want to have access to it. Understand that totally. And there's another section that we looked at closely, and we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars looking at, which is the section from South Wyndham into downtown Westport. And that one has a number of other issues. And I sat in a couple of public forums where those were vetted. The people who had concerns about it had their concerns heard, names taken down, contacted to find out what could be worked out. One of the more amusing things is the fellow one of the abutters wanted to make sure there was a fence there because he had a big vegetable garden. He didn't want people stealing his tomatoes. I looked at him like, you must be joking. That's why I ride a bike, I'd rather steal tomatoes. Anyway, you have a voice, they're concerned. And the dark side of that is sometimes butters get really aggravated if they're steamrolled.
Right.
And so, I mean, I've talked to people in the Department of Transportation on a bi-weekly basis and hear about some of these efforts to reach out to the butters.
I mean, they do send a letter to everyone in the property that's abutting the rail line. And they actually ask you to write out what your concerns or issues are, that they can take them into consideration. The DOT will have public hearings. Some have occurred already, but they'll continue to have those so people can show up and ask questions or hear about more information.
So, what kind of use would be allowed on this trail? You talked about bicycle and foot, snowmobile, ATV, skiing.
Yeah, the only thing that's been excluded in the legislation, 404 and others, we're not the only ones who are doing this. There's actually 3 or 4 other trail groups in the state who have managed to get their legislation passed. They got them passed this year, ours was passed 2 years ago. All of them exclude ATVs. And that's been the case for 20 plus years on the trails. You know, there certainly are, mixed reasons for that. I've had the opportunity to walk along the Down East Sunrise Trail, which has a lot of ATVs on it, and it's not always a harmonious existence with them. It can be done, and they pull it off, but the Mountain Division Trail has always been not for ATVs. Now, I have to be careful here because there's some practicalities that I think need to be addressed, and that is, if there's an ATV trail that comes up to the Mountain Division Trail and then it continues 30 yards down the Mountain Division Trail, what do you do? Turn around and go back? So there is some discussion about exceptions, these passages where using the Mountain Division Trail to get to another ATV trail may be allowed, but it's not. The general use is virtually everything else. I mean, I've seen guys on scooters, I've seen them on straight skates, all kinds of things. I just saw a guy on a unicycle. Wow. Take a picture of this one. And as I was somewhat joking with Terry, he called me up one day and said, we allow dog sled races on the trails. Whatever, it's in the middle of winter, if it's not inconveniencing other people, why not?
We have some of the dog sled races in Brownfield, right? Yeah. Hard to be able to bring them to trail.
Once it gets all completed, who's going to be responsible for the upkeep and the cost of the upkeep of it? Is it going to be DOT or is it going to be the town?
That's an excellent question, and I'm like up to here with it right now. There currently is, I don't want to go too much into history, but I'll snap it into a couple sentences. There are support and maintenance agreements, I think they're called trail management and maintenance agreements, that have been set up. One is between, or among, Wyndham, Gorham, Standish, the snowmobile clubs, the Mountain Division Alliance, I think there's a hiking club. All were signatories to this management and maintenance agreement. And that was signed in 2003. And those towns have lived with it ever since. The simple answer to your question going forward is we do need to get a management and maintenance agreement in place so that the lines between what people are responsible for and what the MDOT is responsible for are clearly delineated. I think the general rule of thumb is there's, I think, 8 or 9 different types of activities that the town is responsible for. I think it's like mowing the side of it twice a year. They're really nominal. And if things go bad, that's where the state steps in. As an example, if there's a big blowdown in the trees, if there's flooding and one of the conduits or bridges is taken out, they step in. And the simple answer to why that is way back in what I was talking about early on in the conversation, that this is a trail on tow rail. In order to maintain the easements, the state is required in their best interest to maintain the trail and the beds, etc., more importantly the bridges and the conduits, as if the railroad was returning tomorrow. So the bridge gets knocked out, all of a sudden that premise is violated, and potentially the easement gets drawn to the question, easement from 1870s. So they are all over the bridges, trying to fix those. That's where big bucks come in. The bridges, the conduit, the flooding and washout that occur there, that's when they step in. But literally this afternoon, I was going through a set of tasks and dividing them with one of the people from MDOT. You're responsible for this, we're responsible for that. I put out a list assessing the bridges and conduits. It should be done annually. We shouldn't do that as a community. You have the expertise in this. Send somebody to walk the trail, run the trail, whatever, and do the assessments. Because that's something they would have to pay for as a safety matter.
Yeah.
There's a bridge that's absolutely beautiful down on the border of Westbrook and Wyndham. It's called the Inkhorn Bridge. It's an arch of stone blocks, like that big. It was built in the 1870s and goes up 25, 30 feet, and the stream flows underneath it. And then on top of it is probably 20 feet of soil, and on top of that are the rails and the ties that go across. Here's the punchline of that story. The rocks are coming down. After 140 years, it's not safe anymore. It's certainly not safe for a train. The MDOT put up what are called Jersey barriers. They're about that big, made out of cement.
Yeah.
They don't even want people walking on them. Now, I know somebody quite closely who walked on that recently. Took some pictures. I won't mention any names, but I have those pictures. And you can see where the dirt has punched through the ties. So they did the right thing. But that bridge, and the reason why the state needs to be in that business, not any town along the way, initial estimates are $3 million for that one bridge.
Yeah.
So there's accountability on both sides. And one of the roles that we play is we try and develop a listing of able and willing volunteers to come out and help out with some of the maintenance. And it's not, I mean, we have, I think, 2 days a year, that kind of thing, and have 5, 6 people turn out and just trim around the edges, so to speak. But, God bless it, the pavement, the asphalt that laid down in the Wyndham, Coram, and Standish section is about 20 years old. And this is the first year I saw them patching in places.
Oh, yeah.
20 years.
So it held up better than on the roadways.
Yeah, different kind of load.
Right. Not a big turnstile.
Yeah. So I was trying to think of what growth meant for a town like Baldwin or Belfield, for that matter. Population's about the same.
Yeah.
And I know trails in other parts of the country. I've ridden a half dozen or more of them, and what they see is a combination of development. And I'd like to think that development can be managed in a way that works for your town. That campgrounds or places along the river that people bring in RVs or wherever it is, those people would bring bikes and be using the trails. It's not that there's going to be a new mall here with a fancy inn or hotel there. It's more of what works for the town, what draws people to the town, and then with that question answered, figuring out what kind of development makes sense that the trail would help with. Whether it be bed and breakfast places, or, you know, the whistle stop times 2, you know, another place that you can stop and get beverages and coffee and things. Managed development, growth. They do turn out a lot of money. There's a train, track that was turned into a trail. It goes from the outskirts of Montreal up north of Mount Tremblant, if you know who that is. It's called the Petite Train Nord, 110 miles. They have done it right. There's another dimension to this that it's difficult to imagine until you've ridden that trail. I've walked parts of it, but haven't ridden it. So you talk to people who have. They actually have a travel agency set up. You call in and say, I want to do 3 days, I want to go from Mount Tremblant to St. Taverne, pay a hotel, I want this kind of hotel, this kind of price, restaurants. I want people to arrange for bringing my luggage from one hotel to the next, so I just ride with a day pack. It generates over $100 million a year in tourism. And they're hard numbers. A lot of these studies they're a little abstract, let's say. They book the reservations. They book the restaurants. You know, they have harder numbers. And, I'm not trying to, you know, paint dazzling pictures of what it could be. It's just, it can generate a fair amount of revenue. Eastern Trail generates a lot. I'm trying to remember the figure. Like $10,000 a mile per year.
Eastern Trail, that goes down the coast, right? That one that goes down to...
Goes from South Portland, arguably to Kidder. It's not completed yet, but most of it is. They're actually working on it this year, next year. I think they'll complete it next year.
Yeah. They even built an overpass over the turnpike.
Isn't that remarkable? Then they care about it. Yeah. Every time I pass under, I go, what is that?
Yeah.
You come in a bite in the sky.
Yeah.
Other questions? I think I'm talking too much.
No. Another thing is, you said that they're going to use the existing pathway where the rails are now, so they won't be taking anybody's land on the sides, I think.
Well, if we built a rail with a trail, the answer would be yes.
That's a little bit,
in this case, the answer is no. They are, as part of this final design, confirming that.
Okay.
But, in quotes, the lay people, not the engineers, people who are expert in this area, have walked in and said, no, we don't need to. Where it comes in is if you have to widen it. Because the easement was initially put in place in the 1870s, it's like 100-foot wide. That's not the problem. It's when the geography doesn't work with it.
It's different widths at different points along the trail.
That's right.
Even going through my land, it changes width. I have a similar situation to you, and you know, when you ask somebody and you get a verbal answer, and you ask 30 years later, maybe the answers don't match up. What I'm interested in is, will I be able to have a right-of-way over the trail from one side of my land to the other?
Yes. I mean, I've heard the MDOT people say this in a public forum, the Westbrook Woodland section. Yeah. And the very same question.
I mean, I think that would help both Bob and me. Yeah. You know, if we could just drive across it. Yeah. That's all I'm looking for.
Yeah.
So that's what will be very important that you putting on the form that they send you in the mail. Explain exactly what it is that you need. Yeah. That they're aware of where you are and what you need.
You know, are there cattle involved? You know, what is it?
Yep.
I do have an easement over the track for driving my cattle.
Okay.
So I'd have to go out and buy cattle, but I can drive it back and forth for what I want. Yeah.
Somebody who's been at this even longer than I told me on a section that I pedal all the time, well, there's a cow underpass. I went, what the? When they built the railroad for this one farmer herdsman, whatever, probably a combination of those, in the 1870s, they built an underpass with stone. It's like 2 cows wide, and it goes from one field to this other field, so the cows can have to cross the railroad.
Yeah, that's right.
Huh?
Yeah.
So I walked underneath and went, wow, this could be an attraction.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
Put some spooky figures in there. The kids will love it.
Yeah.
know, the next step, in Baldwin involved, would you come to us with a proposal of, you know, obviously there's money involved, you wouldn't be here, you know what I mean? So at what point do we know either if the town wants to budget for it, or if they don't wanna do it at all,
Here's the good news. That's probably 2 years off.
okay.
And the reason why it's good news is not because I'd love to see you guys get a trail sooner, is that we'll have a lot more experience now. We'll know what it costs per mile to maintain it and how the costs split out. The construction of the trail is not the responsibility of the town. The state is bearing the cost of that. Totally. It's the maintenance and management thereafter. In several of the towns, we have been working the last year or two to come up with a cost per mile. Unfortunately, I've heard everything from $500 to $3,000 a mile to maintain it, and I don't believe either figure. Somewhere's in there is what it would be, and the question is, how much does that the town have to bear versus the state and the town, or some other a foundation, or however it's divided. But that's won't have the hard numbers in a year or two out.
There's so many layers to that too, because it would have to be maintained to the standard of the guy giving the most money, you know what I mean? So if, say, a town didn't maintain it to them standard, what would be involved with that? What kind of fines, dirty letters? I mean, where does it go? That's what I mean. It's to the point of, I mean, you're assuming everybody's gonna be a good steward of that trail. What happens if they don't? Have you got to that point in your conversations?
No, but we haven't gotten to that point in the conversation, but I would just point to the experience of the 4 towns that have the trail. We've never gotten to that place. It's always been worked out, and to be frank with you, it's because guys like me call up and say, hey, your fence is down over there, you know, could you get somebody out there and look at it from Public Works or whatever. Fortunately, I don't have to do that very often. It's taken care of by volunteers, but I've never heard of anything about a penalty or a fee, or it's more of a, hey, let's get on it. We'll help get some volunteers out there to work that out.
And we found that, the Burnt Meadow Snow Club in Brownfield helps out a lot with various things, on the Freiburg portion of the trail, because they use it. So they're good stewards, so, you know, well, let people, volunteers show up.
Yeah, and to contrast that for a moment, in Vermont, they have well over 100 miles of trail. In fact, the Mountain Division rail went from Portland to Ogdenburg, New York, on the St. Lawrence Seaway, going through all the states in between, Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, and even upstate New York, upstate New York. And each state has addressed what they do with the rail line since the trains weren't running on it, like in Maine, in New Hampshire, Vermont for 30, 40 years. In Vermont, they did something I thought quite interesting. They bought the rights in the 70s and 80s, I think. And what happened was the snowmobile associations in Vermont approached the state and said, we want to redo this trail. We want to make this into a trail that we can use in the winter. And we'll get around to what Terry was saying about the snowmobile clubs. They actually signed a contract with the state that they were going to build this trail and take up the rails and the ties and build the trail. And they did. They did it 10, 20, 30 miles at a time. Starting in 2003, it's now 91 miles. And it's what's called a longitudinal park in the state of Vermont. It's owned by the state, managed by the state, with local authorities, if you will, who help out with the management and maintenance of it. But the point of the story is, the snowmobilers were the initiators. That wasn't true here, and it's not true in New Hampshire either. And it's in Maine, it's more of the cyclists and the people, the pedestrians that are on it. We're starting to reconnect with the snowmobile clubs. Here I finally got around to connect to what Terry was saying. In that in Vermont, the snowmobile people take care of it in the winter, and the towns and hiking groups and pedestrians, they volunteer and do it in the summer. So if a tree goes out in the winter, who's inconvenienced? It's mostly the snowmobilers, and they get their group out there and they clear the trees. If it's big, the state steps in. So we like to get something symbiotic like that going on in our state.
You might not know the answer to this, where it is all state funded. Do you have to go back to the state every year for more money? I mean, it can't just be a blanket, I'm gonna spend whatever it costs to get to point A to point B. There must be layers of funding that you get from the state.
Well, I can tell what it's in Vermont, about what it's in Maine, because we're still inventing this in Maine. Vermont is like 5 years ahead of us.
Yeah.
What they do is every year they have a capital budget. The various authorities along the trail, they have 3 of them, east, central, and west. They put together what the budget they think they're going to be, and that's submitted to the state. There's a heavy amount of interplay between the government bureaus responsible for this. In Maine, it's called Parks and Lands. In Vermont, they call it something different. But they hand in hand it off that budget based on seasonal assessments. Every year they go through, just as I was saying, the Maine Department of Transportation needs to look at the bridge, see if it's serviceable, if it's going to work, needs to be repaired. Boom, 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 put that money into the budget because this year we have to work on that. So that's where it becomes a symbiotic thing.
So the Maine DOT currently has phase 1 in their budget for 2026. That they would be, I don't know what they have, 11 million, I think, in the budget for phase 1. So it will require them putting it in their budget for each phase as it begins to be developed.
Okay. Ongoing funding, basically.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, if it was your property, you'd probably want to maintain it. This is the state's property. So they have invested in it.
Which is still mine, but we won't go there.
We're part of it. Yeah, I'll take the part without the hurricane fence. Other questions, comments?
No, keep swinging.
Thank you. It's work of the heart. But I got to tell you, every time I'm out on that trail, you know, you meet people on the trail. That's another part. It's not immediately apparent, but you start feeling a sense of community because you see the same people every day you're out there, and sometimes you stop for conversation. It hasn't quite gotten to what I would call a gathering place, but you see clumps of people standing there talking, not only exercising but talking. Not many places like that you can get together these days.
I know a lot of people in this area, they want to walk, but they don't want to walk on the side of the road here.
Right.
You know, they treat this 113 like this main turnpike.
Right. Or
Yeah.
riding bikes, or taking
Right.
the right behind.
Right, yeah.
And one of the things that we hope for is to make the trailheads really attractive gathering spots as well.
Yeah.
So rather than just a parking lot, have picnic tables or a gazebo or, you know, a place where people can sit and have their lunch and sit and chat. And,
Yeah.
we'll get there.
Yeah.
Park a food truck.
Yeah,
Right.
that's right. A yard at a time, and a cloud of dust. We're actually moving it down the field. Well, thank you, folks.
Yeah,
thank you.
Glad you stopped by. And we're trying to make it more frequent. If you happen to know somebody who might be interested in joining our board, I'd love to talk with them.
Yeah.
I think Robin's got my phone number. It sounds a little bit.
When do you have a regular meeting time that you get together and meet?
Yes, we meet every month for an hour and a half and have many conversations between, and our executive committee meets more frequently than that as issues come up.
But our meetings are a Zoom call. We do everything over Zoom.
Oh, you're
It's all
Zoom?
spread out.
Oh,
So.
okay.
And Doug leads them. He is the best facilitator.
Oh, please.
He begins on time, covers the agenda, and he ends on time. I love that.
Yeah.
He does it in a very graceful way. Okay, Terry, let's take that offline.
Later. Well, thank you, folks. We'll be back.
Thank you.
Okay, it's usually what, the third or fourth Wednesday of the month we meet?
Yeah.
Third Wednesday. Yeah, but I don't know if those meetings are posted on our website. There's more information on the website, even the, like, bridge designs and all that Doug was describing. The feasibility study is really interesting to look at online. You know, it has pictures of every bridge, and, you know, what the issues are, and
great, I can talk
Pretty
to stuff in the library. There's a young man named Andrew.
Andrew Walton,
Yeah,
He's
yes.
the secretary of our organization.
Yes,
The
he comes
three of
in,
us
he's
have
very
it.
enthusiastic.
Yeah.
he wanted to sign the brochures
Oh, cool. Okay.
and the website.
If you see in the dark room with these sparks coming up his fingers, it's
I
a
understand.
high energy kind of guy.
Very much so.
Great,
Yeah.
great.
So when I say we'll be back, it's not as a Terminator, okay? Give me a good one.
Thanks very much.
Thank you for coming. Reminders, planning board meeting Thursday, summer? Joey, got anything?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm hoping very much that you will all come to the planning board meeting on Thursday, because we can come up with a coordinated way to approach conflicts between state law and town ordinance. I think it's much better if we're not arguing about it, or we do it once rather than, every week.
I'll be there, yeah.
So I've been talking it up, and I know David Strock will be there, and I know that Matt Fricker will not. It's Matt Fricker's, it's Janet's birthday that night. And unfortunately, we don't, so,
I'll be there.
great, thank you, Dale. I really appreciate it. I really want to have a choice position on this.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys, yeah.
And just that's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there a senior lunch?
Yeah, it's on the calendar for the 21st.
21, okay. So the elevator is back in working order. They're gonna get some service guys down into the pit to correct the water damage that had been there, from that, tree that had clogged the drain.
Yeah.
And the Estes had pulled part of the drain away so that it actually works again. But I've already replaced the, light in the pit and the GFI plug and the sump pump that isn't there. That was never put in, and that would have helped if it had been there.
Yeah.
Just saying. So we're working on that, and two of the top engineers from Atlantic Comfort are coming to figure out what's wrong and what to do about the air handler. Finally, don't have a committed date yet, but we're getting infinitely closer. So that's good. Well, that is. We're looking for somebody to do the walkways better. The plow guy said he'd do them, and he'll do what he can see, but he doesn't do the back stairs of the building, which if there's a fire, that's an escape.
Yeah.
But then where do they go once they hit the ice down the bottom of the stairs? And so nothing has been done for that. So I want to get somebody that knows what they're doing to handle that.
Yeah.
We hope. Yeah. The guy's offered, but I don't know how good he is. So. Other than that, we're doing okay.
Yeah, good.
Thanks.
Mary?
No, thank you for asking.
Mariella?
No, I'm all set.
Bruce? All set. Chad? Robert? Bob? Okay.
Good.
I'm good.